Welcome to Real Martial Law, a weekly program focusing on real estate and the laws that govern the real estate industry along the Grand Strand, the PD, and South Carolina. And now, here's Marshall Biddle and Jack Murphy with Real Martial Law.
Good day and welcome to the first ever edition of Real Martial Law. I'm Banana Jack Murphy with Q-Rock Radio, and joining me in the studio is an attorney and real estate broker here along the Grand Strand. He has offices in downtown Conway. It is the one and the only, and thank goodness for that, Marshall Biddle. Hello, Marshall.
Hey, yes, absolutely. My wife would say that too. She told me over the weekend that I was one of a kind, and I said, "Yeah, and is that a good thing?" And
well, I know your parents, and they'd agree.
Yeah, for sure. Don't talk to my mom. She'll throw me under the bus every time, you know. She's the only one I let get away with lawyer jokes. So.
Oh, wow.
You know, and she sends me the good ones, and they are good. And
yeah.
I like a good joke.
And we'll be sharing some of those ridiculous, just totally awful lawyer jokes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, thanks, Jack. I really appreciate the opportunity to bring a little real martial law to the airways of the Q-Rock Radio. And, early Sunday morning is always a good time. It's a little easy listening for us.
Well, we like to say here at the station, we're bringing the best summer of your life back to life. And we can't deny that people that had an incredible experience during their youth plays a big factor in relocating and moving to this area.
Yep, for sure.
So we wanted to touch on that a little bit and key in on it. And so bringing in a real estate broker and someone who's been here longer than I have. I've been here since '89. You grew up here.
I did. Been here my whole life, and except for the 9 years I was in Columbia doing the education thing at University of South Carolina, both undergraduate and law school. But I have deep roots here, and so not only deep roots, but I have deep real estate roots. And so I just thought that this would be something that people would be interested in and want to talk about, and getting it from somebody who's been here and seen the actual changes over the last 55 years. I'll be 55 in April, so I just thought it was a topic that I know a lot of people are touching on, but I figured it'd be a good opportunity for us to get something on a Sunday morning on Q-Rock Radio.
Sure. Well, we're excited about it. As you were chatting, I for some reason, HOAs popped into my mind.
Yes.
And that's a problematic thing here along the coast. I think Horry County may rank at the top of the biggest grievances with HOAs in the state.
Yeah, for sure. There are a lot of those, and actually I've been getting a lot of calls, about HOAs and board issues. And what happens really, Jack, is that over the years, the developer was in control of basically everything with the HOA, and back in the 70s and 80s, you didn't have to be a licensed property manager and those kind of things like you do now. And so there are a lot of HOAs out there that don't really follow the rules because they're just flying by the seat of their pants. And so I've been involved in a couple of matters with some HOA companies where they don't do the board meetings, they don't follow the bylaws, they don't follow the covenants and restrictions in the master deed and those kind of things, and and they just don't know that they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And we just kind of jumped right into that, but from a real estate standpoint and from a law standpoint, the documents say you do things a certain way, and if you don't do them, there's consequences.
Sure.
And and most people don't know that they're not doing it right because they don't have any idea. They don't have a lawyer involved. They don't have a real estate broker who's involved for the most part. Then, you've got some maybe homegrown management entity or company or person that's been doing it for years and years and years, and they just they do what they've always done, and you start asking questions about well, where's our money going, what's the accounts, where are the records, and at the end of the day, most HOAs are nonprofits, and the nonprofit owns their documents. They own the accounts. And so it's operated by a board of directors or trustees or something like that on a nonprofit. but the management company kind of borrows that authority from them to pay the bills, make sure that the dues are paid, and those kind of things. But when you get, what really happens is they get disgruntled with the management company. They contact the management company and say, we need our bank accounts, we need our records, we need all that. And they don't really want to give them to them, when in fact they actually belong to them, but they're not. You got a board that's not on the bank account. They're not registered with anybody. They're not on they control the mail. The management company controls the mail, controls the accounts, controls the records, controls the bills they're paying. And, without a lawyer and possibly having to go to court, sometimes it just changes the way things work. But there are HOAs out there that are run by, a handful of people, and they are little fiefdoms. And they run things personal, You say something bad to me, well, you're already on my hit list, and, I'm going to use my power as a board member to, help my friends when they need something, but my enemies are going to be, persecuted.
Sure.
So, and I hate to say that that's how it works, but it really does. I live in a neighborhood, and our covenants and restrictions expired in 2016, and that was one of the happiest days of my life.
What happens after that, though, when something like that happens?
Well, most of the covenants and restrictions came into being because there wasn't a zoning ordinance back in the day, and so the developer wanted to maintain and keep uniformity and let people do and not do certain things that would devalue or create eyesores in the neighborhood and those kind of things. And so, but now we have the zoning ordinance that all the properties are subject to. They still have the covenants and restrictions, but some HOAs, you can't. It's a money making thing now. Back in the early days when I was in real estate in the late 80s, before I went to college and law school, the HOA, you would call them and say, hey, I need a certificate of assessment, and they would send you the same day, here's the certificate of assessment, here's how much the dues are, here's how much they owe, here's how much they pay, and it didn't cost anything. Mm-hmm. Then they started thinking, wait a minute, we can charge for this. So then they charged $25. Nowadays, it's $250,
really?
And you have to prepay it, and then they tell you when they're going to give it to you. If you want it in less than 2 days, it costs an extra $100. If you want it in a week, it's $50. If you want it real time, which is somewhere 14 or 10 business days, it's still $250.
What are they going by, the Amazon Prime shipping guide? That's
it's
insane. I get it now.
And you got to prepay because it's a money-making opportunity. And again, back in the day, it was just pull it up on the computer, you print out the notice, and that's the way it is now. But now they know we've got an opportunity to get those funds. I mean, somebody wants to put in a plant, they want to put some bushes or something in their yard, you now have to submit an application, $25 to the HOA. It goes before a board of review or something to that effect. They look at it and decide whether you can or can't put a potted plant in your yard. Again, I don't really, from a political standpoint, I don't really want to live in a neighborhood like that.
Yeah, sure.
You talk about keep your laws off my body, man. Keep your laws off my land.
Right.
And so it really is interesting because I have drafted and created bylaws, master deeds, covenants and restrictions. I have that experience and background from being a real estate lawyer and basically, studying all the real estate law that I could when I was in both undergraduate and law school. My undergraduate's a real estate management degree, and then my law degree, obviously from the University of South Carolina, was the only law school at the time. But I looked at it from a development standpoint because of my family being involved in, a large development company here. And so, those were the things in my mind were how can this help me in the future and what is it that I want to know? And so, that's how I kind of got into that realm. And so it kind of made sense for this program to be real estate and law. And, those paths cross an awful lot.
Yeah, I want to go back and key in on something because your family has been in the land development business over a century.
Since the 1800s.
Yeah, it's going back.
Yep. Yeah, and
wow, talk about changes.
No question. Well, and I'll tell you, the development, I mean, at one point we owned over 100,000 acres in Horry County, and Horry County has only got about 110,000 acres. So literally most of it was owned by my grandmother's grandfather and the company. But in those days, it was smart development because you didn't have covenants and restrictions. You didn't have zoning. You didn't have any of that. And so they were the ones that created the harmonious developments, if you will, where it wasn't something, crazy where you had this and you had that. I mean, they have these restrictions on deeds, and they've been there for centuries, really decades, longer than that, hundreds of years. And those became what ultimately is the covenants restrictions. You can't do this, you can't do that, and those kind of things. And they were thinking about that back in those days when there was no law. And so it was good stewardship for the community. And my grandmother's grandfather, he had an idea or a theory or a policy that he lived by, and it was, if it's good for the company and it's good for the community, we'll do it. If it's good for the company but not good for the community, we're not going to do it. And if it's not good for us but good for the community, we might still do it. But at the end of the day, that's going to be kind of our decision. Is everybody's got to get a positive result from what it is we're doing. And so putting in highways, putting in the railroad. I mean, they built the railroad from Conway all the way to the beach, which made Newtown Myrtle Beach. And of course my grandmother's grandmother named Myrtle Beach. So I have just lots of history and knowledge and experience of my family being here and doing smart development, and they still do to this day. So so this is kind of it's not that we're going to get into the history lessons, but real estate and law all look back at the history of kind of what has happened and what's it going to do and how are we going to go forward. And sometimes they look back at the precedents, and sometimes they look at things going forward and determine, well, let's make a change and go from there. So anyway, I'm excited about this opportunity and appreciate you and
sure.
Chance to talk about some real law and my other favorite thing, Marshall.
Well, if people have questions, kind of a simple way to get to you for some more info.
Yes. Yeah, they can send questions. You can submit questions by email to questions@realmarshall.com, and that's Marshall with 2 L's, so it's real, REALMARSHALLLAW.com, and we can talk about those if you got questions or just comments, or you want to talk, or anyway, just shoot us an email and we'll figure something out.
All right, we'll take a quick time out. We'll be back with more of Real Martial Law after this.
Stick around, there's more Real Martial Law still to come.
If you're buying or selling real estate and you need an attorney, contact Marshall Biddle at the Biddle Law Firm. Marshall's been involved in the purchase and sale of real estate for more than 30 years, and his family's been in the real estate development business for more than a century. In addition to being an attorney, Marshall is also a licensed real estate agent here in South Carolina. The Biddle Law Firm is located at 913 3rd Avenue in historic downtown Conway and online at biddlelawfirm.net.
Howdy, partner. Welcome back to Real Martial Law.
Hey, we're back with more Real Martial Law. Marshall Biddle, local attorney and real estate broker, is spending a few minutes with us this morning to talk about real estate. Is it still an exciting time? I mean, if things cooled off?
I think things have cooled off a little bit. The market really is shrinking a little bit from, the last year. I mean, we have the annual report, from the local real estate, Coastal Carolina Association of Realtors, and, home prices are actually up, but the number of homes that have sold is down. And
that jives with supply and demand. That makes sense. But last year, was so hot.
Yes.
I mean,
it really was.
There are places all over America that would love to have our are numbers that are way off.
Yeah, actually, 2021, for listing wise and sales, 2021 was gangbusters. In Horry County, in the greater, Grand Strand area, we had 12,420, actually single family residents close, and in 21 we had 8,976 condos that sold, and both of those are up 14-15%. The condos are up 35%. That was 21. And then we had a 22 was 11,066 single family home actual closed sales, and the condo sales were 7,222. We're still in a good market. I think that historically, when the markets have turned, like the 6-7 was gangbusters, 8, 9, and 10 when everything changed and we had the bubble burst, if you will, things went in a different direction. We're kind of the last to fall off and the first to come back. Myrtle Beach, Horry County, the Grand Strand area, really from a real estate standpoint, we have something that people want. We're not in Florida where it gets really hot and you have lots of hurricanes or the potential for hurricanes. And then, we have a little bit of cold weather, like the 34 degrees that, whips in, when you're least expecting it. But for the most part, our general overall, climate temperature in this area is pretty good. You don't have much snowfall if you do at all. It's here for a moment and gone, the next. So I think a lot of people really like, where we are. It doesn't. We have some dog days that run into the summer sometimes if we don't have any rain, but for the most part, it's still a hot market. Reasonable listings get placed. People are it's still kind of a seller's market, if you will. Mm-hmm. You can still buy, interest rates are up. They fluctuate a little bit, come and go, based on obviously inflation and those kind of things, and what the Fed does. The Fed, didn't increase interest rates this last time. They've kind of slowed the market. I remember for the 15 or 20 years before they started raising rates, it literally was at zero forever, or a quarter of a point, or 1/4, or 0.25 basis points. They control some of the market as well, but I think what really drives it is people from the north realizing that we want to be somewhere where it's comfortable, it's nice, people are nice, the weather's nice, I have nice neighbors, and that kind of thing. And Myrtle Beach is that area for a lot of people. They sell a house up in the north for an awful lot of money, and they come down here, they can buy a really nice house for half that money. They put some money in the bank, and they're living on their pension or retirement or Social Security, and they're living the good life. And it's nice to be a location where people want to come to live the good life.
Well, you don't just see people living at the beach. A lot of folks that have moved from metropolitan areas, they would drive 45 minutes to an hour or catch a train into work.
Yep.
So that's added a whole different dynamic to farmland or places where guys used to just hunt.
Yep.
And so now there's houses popping up, not just outside of Conway.
Yep.
Not Loris and Aner, but you're seeing the growth even go to Marion
Yeah.
County now. I tell people, I wish I had some money, I'd buy some land in Marion.
Yeah, the Marion is going to be the next community.
Yeah.
They're the next commuting, and land's cheap in Marion right now, and there's plenty of it. I'll tell you what triggered most people don't know this. They see these neighborhoods pop up here, there, and yon, and they don't really understand, why hasn't that property been developed before? Mm-hmm. Well, and that property was owned by a company that's been around since the 1800s, and it was farms or timber. And most of those farms were sharecropped with people that owned or that worked the farms and split. There was the tobacco allotment, that historically is what really built the farming area in Horry County. Tobacco was king back in the day, and then, things really changed. But, the timber, but that company sold a majority of its timberland and farmland to a real estate investment trust, Timbervest, if you will, and then they have systematically kind of divested themselves of it, and so the developers have bought the land, put in the infrastructure, and built the houses. And so those areas that generally didn't have much infrastructure, traffic and those kind of things, are now getting a lot of traffic, a lot of people, a lot of waiting, a lot. The line coming to go over the old bridge in Conway every morning goes from the bridge all the way back almost past 16th Avenue. Mm-hmm. And when I come in and go that way, I'm like, wow, where are these people coming from? And now I know there's just lots of spots that are out there. Aner was a bedroom community. Gallivant's Ferry is kind of growing, and then you're right there at the Marion County line, and there's a lot of folks that are looking at Marion, and prices are still historically low over there. So there's some opportunities to buy some land, put in the infrastructure, build some houses, and but one thing's for sure is that the pipeline of people coming to Horry County and Marion County is full, and they're still coming, and I think that's good for the real estate market.
Sure.
I think it's good for our community as well.
Well, if you start talking to folks, I'm sure people have chatted about wind and hail insurance.
Yes.
That's a little tricky. I live between the two 17s. That's not a bragging thing.
Nope.
But it's definitely something to consider, because it's tricky getting insurance.
Yeah. Is that Myrtle Beach proper?
I live in Myrtle Beach
Okay.
proper.
Okay.
Between the 17s.
Yeah.
And so that's a tricky thing with the wind and hail.
It is.
That cost, the farther you go out, and we do have. I remember the fire we had in, I think it was 2009.
Yes.
Which was a little crazy.
Yep.
We had to go back. We got a little spoiled. We used to have to, if we were going to Loris, you just drive up to North Myrtle and hit 9, and then it would take forever.
Yep.
I was thinking to myself, man, I don't want to do a lot of this.
Yeah, for sure.
Driving out, but we do have the infrastructure. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
You can get anywhere now.
Yeah, you
in
can.
the county.
Well,
it's a little tricky getting
absolutely.
to Myrtle Beach. I don't know about you.
Yep.
But I've always been a fan of I-73 or an interstate.
No, I am. I totally agree. I think that, if we would have had an interstate coming straight into Myrtle Beach like 20 should have done back in the day, I think we would be probably 2 or 3 times bigger than we are now. Again, you never can tell. Nobody has a crystal ball or a genie. But I'll tell you, back in the day when 9 came in, 501 came in, those were the roads that, and then 378, those were the roads that came in. 378 was a 2-lane highway. 501, for the most part, was a 4-lane highway divided with a grass median. But back in the day, on the Memorial Days, the Easter weekend, the 4th of July, Labor Day, if we worked over at the beach, it was bumper to bumper traffic. It wasn't because of hurricane. It was just people trying to get home. And, but after Labor Day, there was nobody here. And then they started working on the shoulder seasons and then the golf season, and they started that. And then they started, working with Can-Am days in the early part of the March and getting people in early. And now we're pretty much a year-round resort. You don't believe me? Go to Merle's Inlet on any weekend to get something to eat. Most of the restaurants have a wait and have a line. Back in the day, they weren't open during the winter. They didn't open until, early spring, which is this time of year now. But when I was working over at the beach during those holidays, to come home, I would drive to Georgetown. And you think, you're crazy. I mean, in those days, there weren't a whole bunch of lights. Pawleys Island was still a sleepy little town in Litchfield. And, I would drive down, 17 South, get on 701, come back to Conway. It would take me an hour and a half, but I wasn't sitting in traffic for 3 hours. As a matter of fact, when the flooding was going on, I did the opposite of that. Couldn't get from Conway to my house at Quail Creek, which is over by Conway Medical Center. And so I went to the Mexican restaurant in Conway and had some dinner. I'm sitting there thinking, how am I going to get home? And it was hours of waiting. And so I drove to Georgetown and came back. To go 4 or 5 miles, I went 70 miles, there and back, but I got home in an hour and a half as opposed to the 3 and 4 hours.
Sure.
Again, which made me realize that we certainly need infrastructure in that area.
Yeah.
Everything else is pretty good, but that one area of, when the flood comes and of course Floyd came and we've had some others, and of course now the power plant is gone. There's some discussions about developing around the Lake Busby area, because I think that's been, the city of Conway might now have that property, if I am familiar with the latest happenings. But yeah, I think there's some brighter days coming, and I think there's going to be some interesting infrastructure changes in the greater Conway, Horry County area.
If you're buying or selling real estate and you need an attorney, contact Marshall Biddle at the Biddle Law Firm. Marshall's been involved in the purchase and sale of real estate for more than 30 years, and his family's been in the real estate development business for more than a century. In addition to being an attorney, Marshall is also a licensed real estate agent here in South Carolina. The Biddle Law Firm is located at 913 3rd Avenue in historic downtown Conway and online at biddlelawfirm.net.
Giddy up! We're back with more of Real Martial Law.
Hey, we're back. I'm Jack Murphy with Marshall Biddle, and real estate as an investment. That's something to talk about. I think it's as good as it's ever been right now.
It's kind of the tortoise and the hare. I mean, you can make some quick money, and crypto's out there, and everybody wanted to be in the crypto, and it went gangbusters, and then it went crasho, and now it's, Bitcoin is out there again, and it's up near $50,000,
Right.
and people are talking about that again, and but at the end of the day, I don't think the steady growth is going to be there. And I hate to say that, it is what it is. I think the market's going to prove itself out. But you're right, real estate is kind of the slow and steady, the tortoise that gets the returns every year. It's not the sexy returns. It's not the grand slam home runs, but a whole bunch of singles and triples score runs.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what's happening with people because of the demand is so high, and it does throw a kink. We'll maybe talk about this next week when we get together. For the people that have grown up here and they're seeing the price of a home just explode
Yep.
because of the old supply and demand, that changes the dynamics. Apartments are on the
Yep.
rise, and so there becomes a quality of life issue too.
For sure.
That people that have lived here their whole lives are getting priced out of the market
Yep.
buying that first home.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, then you've got a lot of apartments and people are coming in, and a lot of people coming in influx, but then you also have these new small cottages, that's not really a apartment, it's not really a condo, but and it's for rent, it's not for sale.
Sure.
And so it's really changed the dynamic of the area.
Yeah, we have some oceanfront resorts where you can own the structure but not the land it sits on. I mean, there's a lot of unique things in
Yeah.
real estate here. And for people that are tuning in from some other part of the country, or you're here and you're trying to decide what to do, people can reach out to you and get info, get you back,
Yep. Sure.
You're maybe a backup plan in order.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do free consultations with people?
Of course, yeah, absolutely. And we can talk about real estate, we can talk about law, we can talk about real estate law. But they can submit questions to questions@realmartiallaw.com. If you have any questions about that, you can check out that website. We're still working on getting some of that up and down, but that's realmartiallaw.com. And we'll be glad to help you and see if we can make things good for you.
Sure. I mean, I know some folks that come down here, they buy a home, and then they also, are in the market to develop some streams of income.
Yep,
So,
for sure.
well, good chatting with you
Yes,
today.
sir. Thank you, Jack. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Real Martial Law is a paid program. The views expressed on this show are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of the ownership or management of this broadcast station.